Alright, y'all, we here with a solo leveling Arise video. So today we're going to be working on the July tier list. So we're going to be going over all the characters, SSRs that are currently in the game. We are not going to include the upcoming character next week because, I mean, I need to obviously test the character, see how the interactions are, actually build the character, and I don't want to make any tier list that isn't accurate as possible, right? And just for me to do that over speculation and theories, I don't want to do it like that. I'd rather just do it based off of what I know and everything I've used so far, right? So we're gonna only be covering the SSRs. Gradually, we'll like later on, as the time goes on with this game, I'll progressively start adding all the SRs into the SSR tier list. The reason I'm not going to do it right now, even though I do have some built, is I want to kind of have like at least a portion of them done before I start adding them to the list overall. So it could just be an extensive, complete tier list of all the characters in the game rather than just SSRs. So I only have a few of them built, and I don't want to just put them in there because then, some people might get confused. So we're just not going to include the SRs just yet. We're just going to do SSRs. So we're going to be talking about obviously what they're good at, what they're not good at, if they are a valuable character or not, stuff like that. Kind of standards when you come to look at a tier list, of course, right? This is kind of like if to help you decide if you're going to pull for this character or whatever, whatever may be the reason, or if you just want to know for yourself how much value the character has, right? So the first character we have is Lim Tae-Gyu. So as we know, Lim Tae-Gyu is a character that released in the beginning of the game along with the other standard characters. Now he's a dark DPS character. He plays more of a ranged, rapid pace, mobility type core attack character. He's kind of a little bit of a mix, right? Very unique in a way, right? His playstyle is very fun compared to a lot of the characters in the game. I'd say easily probably top three, like in terms of fun. He's probably one of the top three for me, right? Now, in terms of the character, obviously he's a dark, right? We don't really have too many good dark characters currently in the game. Unfortunately, he is also one of those characters who is just okay in terms of being a dark DPS. His damage is nothing crazy. It's good, but it's nothing crazy when you compare it to other DPS characters that we have for all the other elements, right? Now, he is one of, I believe, the only Dark Breaker that is an SSR, right? That we're talking about. We're not including the other Hwang, SR Hwang. We're just including the SSRs. He is a breaker, right? But is he the best breaker? No. Is he the best Dark Breaker that we have right now? Yes. So realistically, I do not want to put him in the Who tier. We're going to put him in the Chungus tier. He is a good character. It's just you don't really have too many usages for him, and the only time you do use him, obviously, is to have an advantage over, when they're weak to Dark. But even then, his damage is nothing crazy when you compare it to the others. Right, but he's still viable. Don't get it twisted. He's definitely viable, and you could use him for a lot of content regardless. But this is more so comparison between all the characters. He's anything that's in Chungus or higher. Realistically, you can use in any piece of content in the game. It's just when you compare and contrast the characters between each other's their damages and stuff like that and their value. Now, next up we have Choi. So Choi, she came on the release of the actual game, right? Not the early access, but the release of the game. And realistically, she is by far one of the best characters in the game overall. Most of you should know by now. Most of you have already pulled for the character because I mean, you know what she is. She did have a nerf in, I believe, a patch or two ago. This didn't really bring her down that much. She's still overpowered or overtuned, I should say. I still think she's very strong in like almost every piece of content. There's not one single content that I don't think she's strong at. On top of that, her support skill is really nice for Sun Jin-woo, increasing the damage and all that. So for your Sun Jin-woo. So I think she's all the way on the top overall, all the way on the top. Next up, we have Woo Jinchul. Now, Woo Jinchul, he's a very delicate one, right? I've already tried playing him on a break set. Then I've tried playing him with a DPS set. Realistically, on the break set, even with all his dashes and everything, and then his two skills, his break just isn't that good. I'm gonna be honest, it's just not that good. Even when you fight against the boss who's weak to the wind element, I don't know what they were thinking with this character. On top of that, the fact that you have to constantly dodge so that way you can get your skills cooldowns faster and all that. And of course, granted, they do give you ways to possibly get back more dodges. It's just you're just wasting too much time doing dodges to do breaks and all that, and his damage isn't anything crazy anyways, right? And even then, it's just like he has too many weak breaks, and then I believe he has one medium break, and it just doesn't feel that good. I'm not gonna lie, he just doesn't feel that good. I kind of wish his damage was a little bit higher. If his damage was a little bit higher, then I'd rank the character a little bit better. I don't even think he's realistically on the same level as Lim Tae-Gyu, because he does do less damage than Lim Tae-Gyu, and Lim Tae-Gyu does break better than him. We'll just put him in the Chungus tier. He's not really a Who tier. I don't think anybody's going to make the list for the Who tier, but we'll just put him in the Chungus tier. He's definitely going to by far one of the last SSR characters you want to be aiming for. Next up, we have Hwang Dongsoo. Now, or is it Hwang Dongsoo? Either way, you know, I've already glazed this character to oblivion. This is the character I've been using since early access. Completely underrated. Now, of course, there is some people who do understand his worth, and they do not want to invest into him, but they wish they could. I tell you, he is very easy to build. You just need a lot of defense. Previously, you did need some defense penetration for his ult, but then they did change that in one of the patches, so they kind of buffed him in a way, and then they also granted him super armor on all his skills, so that does give him more value as a DPS, because now he can get interrupted, which is good because his second skill is a charge up, and you don't want to get interrupted while doing that because it does have a long wind up time. But once you do unleash it, it's going to do by far giga damage. I think one of his only downsides, realistically, the rest of his kit is entirely fine. He's very powerful. He hits like a truck. He has a lot of defense penetration. His biggest downside is definitely his ult. His ult has very low range, short range. You practically have to be in front of the enemy. On top of that, it's not like one of the other ults, kind of like Choi or Baek, where it has like an animation and a little cutscene or whatever, and then it's instant. His is more so continuous. So basically, the boss could still move while you're doing the ult and all that. It's a very big drawback. I'm gonna put him in the thick tier. Now, realistically, I think his damage is very high up there. He's practically like right under Choi in terms of damage. He's by far, in terms of DPS to all the other characters in the game, he's practically right there behind Choi. Granted, I'm not talking about Alicia just yet, but he's right there behind Choi in terms of damage. But because of his ult, it's very big cutback, because the moment you miss that ult, you practically have to start the run over or redo or whatever just to, you know, try to make sure that you land that ult. It's just very tedious. He does give himself shields, though, passively just by getting your stacks, which is very good. He has a lot of built-in defense pen, so you don't have to focus too much on defense pen and substats. You can just go all-out defense percent, crit hit rate, crit hit damage, and damage increase, and then that's all you need, and you're good to go. He does tons of damage. Like, you can easily do like 8 million damage with a good charge up with a crit. It has to be a crit. 8 million damage just with, like, you know, his second skill. He does absurd damage, right? But yeah, he's definitely up there. I'd like to say in terms of DPS for the characters, top 3 DPS. Next up, we have Bora. Now, Bora's usage is a sub-DPS debuffer type role where she increases damage taken to the enemy. So very similar to Min. A lot of people do not play this character. The reason for that is there's not really a lot of content that you need dark characters in. But when you do, she's very good. Realistically, you have Min. Min is just a better version of her, I'm not gonna lie. He gives increased crit hit rate, increased crit hit damage, you know, increased damage taken, all that good stuff. While Bora only realistically gives more, you know, damage, increased damage taken, right? So she's a good sub DPS, but realistically, there's just not a good main DPS dark. So there's not many reasons to use her, but she's there if you do need her. I'd like to say that she's in the thick tier because she is a very good character. I just don't think a lot of people use her just simply due to the fact that you have Min or Meilin. But she is very good, very nice sub DPS. Just doesn't have a lot of play currently in the game. You may use her for power destruction, of course, and then probably your battlefield time challenges. That's realistically about it. I haven't used her too many other places aside for those. So we're just going to put her in the thick tier. She's definitely not on Hwang's level in terms of viability for, like, obviously his role, but she's definitely a powerful character indeed. Next up, we have Min. Min is definitely Chad. I don't know what to say. Min, you can practically use everywhere. It's like his increased damage taken is useful, of course, for any type of character. So if you scale on HP, defense, or attack, it does not matter. He will help you. He gives you crit. He gives you crit damage. These are all universal buffs. He's flexible. Is basically what I'm trying to say. He's flexible and fits onto any team easily. And on top of that, he is a healer, right? And then, granted, if you do have the right sets for him, like maybe Aquamarine or maybe even like the HP set on him, I believe it's called the Noble Sacrifice, then he can further boost your attack for the character. Of course, granted, this is not going to be that good if you're running like a character who's HP based, scaling for your main DPS, or defense based, but that's okay because now we do have the new sets from Vulcan, which are the Burning Blessing set, which does give increased damage dealt and also heals, by the way, which is definitely going to be his best set, so that does give him even more value. Next up, we have Baek. Now, Baek is definitely powerful indeed. He is by far the best breaker in the entire game. He does inflict defense down, and if you do manage to get dupes, of course, he does increase his damage, which he does a lot of damage. Granted, I basically kind of just killed the Arachnid tier 10 just with him by himself, right? Like, I wouldn't need anybody else. Of course, I do have the other characters on my team, right? But he can basically do it by himself because that's how strong he is. Granted, you have dupes, right? Like, you probably gotta have like 1 or 2 dupes, but he breaks very fast. Like, he's by far the best breaker in the game. Now, his damage isn't anything near Hwang, right? Hwang is obviously miles ahead of him, but the reason why I have him in the thick on the top is I don't want to put him in Chad because his usage is obviously limited because he is a breaker, but he does have defense down, which is really nice, right? So he kind of fits 2 roles for breaking and debuffing. And I just really like him as a character. I believe he's really well built as like all around. I don't think they did him any wrong in any way. He's perfectly just fine as he is. He doesn't need anything else. I actually really like this character. I just think the fact that he is a breaker and probably one of the best ones in the game, he just has a little bit more usage than Hwang, because Hwang is a DPS, right? And there's a bunch of other characters that are also DPSs that you can use, right? There's a bunch of DPSs that can fulfill his role. I mean, granted, he is wind. He's the only wind DPS, or the best one by far in the game. So I just put him here just because he can kind of do a little bit of everything, debuffing, does damage, and all that good stuff, right? So he's going to be on the top of the list of thick. Next up, we have Choi. Now, Choi, I previously had him in the top tier when I did make the release, like the tier list for the release. And as time has gone on, he's slowly dropped down. And it's very unfortunate for the character, but the biggest issue is, of course, this character does get more attack, but he cannot crit. So not having crit is a little bit of a setback, so they tried to, offset it with a little bit more attack. It's okay. I don't really think it's the best. On top of that, he doesn't really do much aside from give defense down, so realistically, you only see him in the sub-DPS kind of category. He's very good in the sub-DPS category. Like, if you need a sub-DPS fire, he's going to be perfectly fine in that and fitting into your team. I just think he kind of fell off the mark on what they wanted him to be, and I just don't think he's just that needed, right? Especially if you have Baek. Baek can do what he does, providing a break and also providing defense down. You just don't really need Choi unless you just need more damage. But if you're running a proper team with buffs and debuffs, and then of course your utility character in the middle and then your main DPS at the end, you really won't need him. But if you really must, of course he will be fine in like stuff like Battlefield of Chaos and Power of Destruction, of course, granted. But you just don't really need him, right? He's just there. If you want to use him, you can use him. He has defense. He's good. It's just him or Baek, right, for defense down. So he's good. I just don't think he compares like well as the other characters. Of course, I'm gonna keep her above him because she increases damage taken by 15%, I believe, with her charm. So it's just much better than the defense down because, I mean, you can have anybody do the defense down. Next up, we have Silvermane Baek. Now, Silvermane Baek is going to go in the Chungus tier. Now, he does do way more damage than Lim Tae-Gyu. The only issue with Silvermane Baek is his damage is not where it should be. Now, it's very high. Don't get it twisted. It's very high compared to the other characters. He's just falling short simply due to the fact that he does take increased damage. He also has to be below a certain threshold to maximize your damage output. He does need quite a bit of spread to actually make this character worth the investment. So you're going to need a lot of things. You're going to need crit hit rate, crit hit damage, HP percentage, attack percent, stuff like that. You're gonna need a whole ton of things like, damage increase, defense, penetration, all that good stuff, right? So he's very spread out. It's very nice when you're trying to build him, but then when you think about it for a bit, it's like, dang, I gotta like kind of spread out these stats good so I don't have any diminishing returns. And then on top of that, he has to be like low HP. He loses HP too. It's very risky play, and then for the value of the damage that he does, it's not. It's good. Don't get it wrong. It's good. He's obviously the best start DPS, but it's like he just has too many drawbacks, and it just kind of lowers his character a little bit. If they did, I believe they did buff him about a couple patches ago, along with a few other characters. But I just think they need to buff him again because he's just not. He's falling too short compared to all the other characters. So very unfortunate. I do have the character max though, and I've played with the character. I still think the character is very good. You can use him. It's just too many drawbacks, risky play. For me, he's my favorite type of playstyle. It's just for overall, in general, compared to all the other characters, he just doesn't have that value. Next up, we have Alicia. Alicia is the best character in the game. I don't know what to say about this character. This character is just absolutely busted. You need the character also for Vulcan. It's just like, she's very powerful. She's quick burst. She was so basically, I'm going to say this right now. Her playstyle is basically like a sub DPS, but she does so much damage that she can basically be your main DPS. Like, it's just absurd, right? Like, you play her like you would play Choi. You would go out, you would use your skills, use your core attack, and get the hell out of there, right? She does that much damage, right? Granted, if you have dupes, she's gonna do even more damage. Like, man, I don't know what they were thinking, but those first 2 dupes are insane, right? It's like more damage. It's like a lot more damage. Now, of course, you could get like her 3rd dupe, which gives her more damage if they're frozen, but I think a big issue with her freeze is basically you can only get it consistently from her ult. Her first skill only has like a 30% chance of freeze, which kind of lowers the value of the 3rd dupe, to be honest, at least for me, because it's not like you're using your ultimate all the time, right? It's like you use it like once or twice per fight, right? It's like once every like 50 seconds or something like that, so it's not that valuable, right? It does do a ton of damage though, don't get it twisted. But she is the best because she, gives shield, she can cleanse, she can do tons of damage rapidly, she can freeze. Like, I don't know what they were thinking when they were looking at her core attack and saying, yep, this is okay. She just, like, the amount of damage she does is instant, right? It's not like Chai's where you have to keep spamming your Q. You literally just use your Q and then you just left click, or if you're on mobile, you just do whatever your tappings are. And boom, you're just doing like 2 mil, 3 mil, like nothing, right? On top of that, we had the newest edition of the newest SSR that had came to the game, which is Meilin Fisher. And she basically takes Alicia to a whole new level. It's like, you can't even really compare this character to any of the other characters. She's just that good, right? And then on top of that, as a supporter, she's not that bad as a supporter either. She's okay. So overall, best character in the game, in my opinion, right? I still think she reigns higher than Chai, and that's just because you get more value out of her considering Vulcan is, weak to water, and that's going to be like your end game, right? This is what you're going to be farming, which is the Vulcan. If you haven't gotten to Vulcan, it's basically a game mode where you have to fight this big fat dude, and he's weak to water, right? So having her is definitely going to make your life a lot easier. Good game mode though. I really like that in addition to the game. Next up, we have Emma. Emma, in my opinion, has fell short in the game for me, at least. She's a fire DPS kind of utility, kind of tank. She's kind of like a mix of everything. She's extremely flexible, right? Her damage is nothing crazy though, right? Her damage is okay. It's nothing special. But I think the thing that gives her the most value is basically her Q, which is like I don't remember what it's called. But it's basically the one that spreads a lot of slashes on the ground, and that thing is insane coverage. Like, it covers like the entire map. It does a ton of damage like to mobs, right? It does burn, all that good stuff. It stays there for a quite bit of duration. If you're doing like battlefield time, she's gonna be in like almost all your teams because she wave clears so fast that she makes your time so short, right? She's definitely really strong, but I don't think she's Chad or thick. She's very situational. Like, I say situational even though I said flexible, but like, I mean, you don't really need her most of the time, right? She's just there. Now, in terms of fire DPS, I think she's going to be the best fire DPS at the moment until the next character comes. I really have high hopes for the next character, the next SSR that comes out. I'm pretty sure you guys seen her in the lobby already with the gun. She's fire, basically by all the leaks and stuff that have came out. and I'm pretty positive they're not going to change it. So she's probably going to be better than her realistically because she's going to be more focused on being a fire breaker kind of character. So she might be similar to Lim Tae-Gyu. I do hope her damage is more appealing than her break though. I don't really need a break because if you do need a break, Emma's right there. Is she the best at it? Not really, but can she do it? Yes. She can provide a bunch of, stuff. She can also boost fire damage as well, so she's definitely going to be a good option for when you're running a mono fire team. But for right now, we don't have too many options, and I would not use her as my main DPS. I would use her as like a sub, like utility type of character, and there's nobody to fulfill the main DPS of the fire role because Choi is also kind of a sub DPS debuffer character. So I just don't really see her with that much usage aside for trying to break or if you're going to do like battlefield time. Granted, she is very flexible and fits in most teams, but that's just how I see it. Next up, we have Seo. Seo is going to go into the 4th spot. This is going to be Chad. Now, the reason I say Seo is going to be Chad is because she gives shield, she's beefy as hell, she has a high ceiling, right? So, granted, you keep like advancing her weapon, basically when you get it to max, you're going to get so much crit damage, it's insane. So right now I have 200% crit damage on Seo. But like if you do get the weapon max, you're gonna get like 140% just from the weapon. Like not granted, but like as many skills as you use, right? Like obviously it's a stack type of thing. It ramps up. The moment you get all your full stacks, you're gonna have 140% crit damage. You're gonna be doing a lot of damage. Now keep in mind she does need her weapon, and she does need her weapon to be leveled. But she has super armor. She has shield. She's beefy. She does good damage. I don't really have any complaints with her. Now, her damage not be like Hwang's. I'm sorry that I'm using Hwang a lot to compare, but Hwang is kind of like that character who's not the best DPS, but he is very good DPS, and that's kind of like what she is. The only thing is, I feel like in this game, HP kind of reigns over defense. Like, you're tankier when you are HP rather than defense. I feel like defense just kind of doesn't feel like you're that beefy at all. I mean, you also need her for service. You can also use her for Vulcan as well. So it's like she's very good. She can break as well. She's a water character. Now, her break isn't the best thing, right? Because like I believe it's a weak and a medium break. And she can also enhance it if you do get your Water Dragon training stacks, like 3 of them. And then you use her second skill, which has the break. It will be enhanced, right? Now, of course, you're not going to be using the break set on her. In most cases, 95% of the time, you're going to be using the curse set, or you're going to be using the crit set because you're trying to maximize her damage. And once you get her 4th dupes, like if you're future proofing, once you get her 4th dupes, basically she gets more HP based off of how much crit damage she has. I believe it's like 15%, right? So it's just like, it's really good. It's really strong. The only reason she's higher than all these other characters is because we kind of need water right now. So I think she has very high value right now. And she's a very good character. She's not bad whatsoever. Does good damage, beefy, all that good stuff. We already talked about that. So we're done with that. Right now, last but not least, the final character that actually released just a while ago. Meilin Fisher. So basically, she is a buffer character. She's a buffer healer. And she's very good on the water mono team. Now, she's very strong for Alicia, right? Alicia, the best character in the game. Now, this is kind of... I want to put her down, to be honest, because I feel like there is a couple flaws in her kit where basically she increases water damage. She increases like core attack damage. That's like whatever. Like not all the characters utilize core attack damage. On top of that, she heals, right? Healing is good, but if you're playing the game correctly, you're doing your dodges and all that stuff, you don't really need the heals unless you're doing Power of Destruction or Battlefield of Chaos. It's not needed. And then of course Vulcans, I mean, it's also situational there because obviously you're in control of the character one by one, so you're able to swap between them. You don't need her, but she does give quite a big portion of stat boost. Like she gives attack 8%, defense 8%, crit hit rate 8%. What else was it? I think it was damage reduction 8% and something else. It might be core attack damage 8%, right? And then of course she also has like Cuddle Puddle and all that good stuff, like those buffs and debuffs onto the enemy. And then she just really boosts core attack damage and she boosts water damage. And the only other water characters that you have in the game currently are Alicia and Seo. So basically Seo's not utilizing too much from this because she doesn't need the damage reduction because she's already tanky as it is. It's a good bonus, but you don't need it. She doesn't need the defense percent because that's not going to have that much value for her. She's not scaling off of defense, and defense as a like for tanking isn't that good. You're better off with damage reduction. Attack, she doesn't really need attack percent. So she's really only gaining crit rate and the core attack. And even then, the core attack isn't that much value for her. So it's like you don't really need to have too much reuse for that. And then, of course, she increases water damage. That's really the only thing that she's gaining out of is the crit hit rate and the water damage increase, right? But Alicia, she's gaining everything. She's getting damage reduction because she's not tanky or anything. She has a shield, but she's not that tanky. She's getting attack percent. She's getting, you know, crit hit rate. She's getting that core attack damage. She's getting that water damage increase. You can basically say at this point that Meilin Fisher was practically made for Alicia. There's no ifs, buts, or anything about it. Everybody knows it. You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. She was literally made for Alicia. So basically, if you have Meilin Fisher and you have Alicia, you're good to go. Right? You're good to go. If you have Alicia and you don't have Meilin, you probably should pull Meilin. I'm not gonna lie, you should probably pull Meilin. At least get her a 1 dupe, so that way you can get the Butler effect, which gives like 34% or something like that core attack damage, which is gonna make your Alicia damage skyrocket. That's if you're free to play. If you're Will, you should probably just max her. That way you can get the 5th dupe, which will then further increase the damage your Alicia will do, right? But I think this is a good spot to put her at. I would love to put her above Min, right? But I feel like the only time you're using Meilin Fisher is in the Water Mono team, and that's only granted you're using an attack scaling or attack type character. Because I feel like she kind of gets half the uses if you are using it for anybody other than Alicia. So basically she kind of makes Alicia better. I just don't want to put her over Min because Min is flexible and he could fit onto any team no matter what. While Meilin is more restricted, she can be used in other teams that aren't Water Mono, but it's like you're not using her full effects, and you're only getting some stat increases, which, in my opinion, I'd rather just have the crit hit rate, crit hit damage boosts, while having this power gauge refill from him on top of that, getting heals, and also getting damage taken increase on enemies, right? So I just feel like it's just better, in my opinion, than hers. And I feel like the only time you would ever use her is obviously in a Water Mono team. So that's why I feel like her value is a little bit diminished. But she's up here in chat because she basically makes Alicia, like them two comboed and paired together is just like, whatever enemy comes your way, fuck you. On God. That's literally how it is. But yeah, basically this is going to be the end of the tier list. This is basically how I see all the characters in the game, tier list wise. And I don't have any issues with it. Of course, if you guys have issues with it, let me know in the comment section below. Let me know what you disagree with and what you agree with. But from my experience, I basically played every single character in the game. I've done every piece of content in the game. So don't take this tier list as this character is bad. That's not how it is. It's just some characters are obviously going to be better or more unbalanced than others, and you'll have more uses out of them than you would of other characters, which kind of lowers their value. But that doesn't mean the character is bad, unless you're Wu Jinchul. Wu Jinchul is by far one of the worst characters in the game. I'm sorry, I built this character and everything, and even max duped him and everything, and he can't compare to any of the other characters in break or in damage. He just can't. The dodges are nice, I guess. But yeah, that's the end of the video. Just let me know what you think, guys, think about the tier list. I think I did a pretty good job with how I value each character in the game, and based on what you need in the game and what content you would use them in. But yeah, video's already long enough. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.